John chapter 9, and plans and purposes. Someone asked this person what my hopes are for my children, and the response was, I want them to be happy and healthy, but however, the most I really desire for them to know, to love, and to serve God, and to know His purpose for their lives. And I know each and every one of y'all that has children, and even grandchildren, and even great grandchildren. That's what I know that y'all are praying for, is you ask what are their plans or what their purpose, and if so, whatever they do, you hope and they serve the Lord, that they can love one another, and another thing is to know God, to know what a relationship is. But in John chapter 9, when we got the blind man, Jesus gives sight to the blind man. Verse 1, and Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. Verse 2, and his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, neither has this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the works of God shall be made manifest in him. See, how many times maybe you've seen someone and said, you know, what happened? Why, Lord, did that happen? But yet, when one of the disciples asked Jesus, who sinned? Was it his parents or was it him? And then I love how Jesus, his reply is that neither has sinned, the man or his parents, don't worry, but yet the works of God shall be made manifest in him. There's a gentleman, and I seen on a video of him, and I wish I would have seen his name, but he was born with no arms and no legs. And he was telling his story how many times that he would get frustrated at his parents. Why, when he was little, they wouldn't do stuff for him. And yet they said, you can do it. And he said, I would get so frustrated and I would just do it for me. You know, he would cry, and even the parent was on video too, and said there's many times there was a lot of tears were shed. You know, that we told him he can do it, just as long as you put your mind to it. There's ways that you can do it. And he said it was heartbreaking. You know, that his son didn't know how to do stuff, but he learned. And it was really neat. It showed him cooking. It showed him going upstairs. And he said even to take a shower. And you think, boy, would that be hard without arms and without legs? But yet it showed him, you know, taking a shower. And then he said one of the most difficult tasks is trying to put my clothes on. But he said, but I can. And he would put his clothes on. And that got me to think, and he said, if someone asked him and said, would you, you know, if they gave you limbs, or, you know, how they have those, would you take them, you know, to use them? And he said, no. He said, maybe back then I probably would have said yes, to make it easier, but he said, no. He said, God made me the way, and he said, I'm able to tell people of my testimony and tell people just because I don't have arms and I don't have legs, that I still can do things. You know, that had him in a little power wheelchair, and boy, he was zipping and going and this and that. And that got me to think when God said this in verse 3, that works of God shall be manifest in him. See, how many times that we don't see clearly at the end of the tunnel, we see right in front of us. Right. And yet, we'll just keep on reading and I'll tell you more. In verse 4, and I must work the works of him that sent me, while it is day, and night cometh when no man can work. Verse 5, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay and spittle, and anointed his eyes of the blind man with the clay. And he said unto him, Go and wash. And the pool is Siloam. And he went his way, therefore washed, and came seeing. Isn't that amazing?
Man.
That this gentleman that never seen God, never seen a person, and yet he has the faith that he didn't know this person, but he heard that was spit on the ground, make clay, and said, hey, put it on your eyes, and then go wash it. Would you do that? The world would say that's silly. That's silly to wash your eyes, and yet he did it. When Jesus saw who was born blind, the disciple wanted to know what caused the blindness, and he responded that none, not his parents or himself, but Jesus responded with an invitation of his purpose instead of the concern, because, and it said, the works of God shall be made manifest in him. How many years did this man and his parents live without knowing man's purpose? How many times that we pray for people, even kids that coming out of high school, and you wonder, what are their purpose? And for this guy to be blind, the world say, well, what was his purpose? He's there. But yet, when Jesus walked by him and said, this is his purpose, so he's blind, so people can see what I can do. God sent me to do the works of him. God sent us to do his work. And so others can see. See, could you imagine Jesus making that clay and then put it on? And could you imagine people watching him? That's the same with us. God made us to glorify him. And guess what? We're here to interact with one another and be a blessing. Show God's love and his grace. Let's see, in verse 8, and the neighbors, therefore, and they which before have seen him, that he was blind, saying, it's not that he that sat and begged. No, we've seen this person. He's blind. He sat down. Wasn't he the one that was begging all the time? Can you imagine? Verse 9, some said, this is he. Others said, he is like him. But he said, I am he. That amazes me that some people, they could see something and say, well, that's, yeah, it looks like the same person that was blind. And some people said, well, yeah, that was the guy. That was the guy that was blind. And all of a sudden he said, I was blind. I was blind. In verse 10, therefore they say unto him, how were thy eyes open? How did you open your eyes? And he answered, a man that is called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes. And he said, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and I washed and I received my sight. Jesus said, go wash your eyes. And you know what? He said, I did. I went. I didn't hesitate, but I washed them, and guess what? I received my sight. It said for many years, like I said, this man and this person didn't know what was his purpose, but his purpose was for Jesus to be there the right time and the right moment for others can see him. When Jesus saw him, he was merciful and compassionate. When I can imagine seeing a ring around people, seeing this man doing this, and all of a sudden Jesus did it out of love and being merciful and compassionate. Jesus revealed his purpose and himself to the blind man. The man's physical and spiritual eyes were open when he obeyed Jesus' command to go wash. He didn't hesitate. As long as we have a breath, if God is calling us to go, even as to the neighbor, or maybe to the cafe, and maybe sit with someone that maybe be sitting alone. I know there's a lady that many times we've seen her, and she was at stage one Sunday morning, and we asked her to come sit with us, and we got to talk with her. It was really neat. We've seen her all the time, and sitting at the cafe, but yet we're like, "Well, you come sit." She said, "Okay," and we had a good conversation, and that's how we learn new people. Isn't that? Whenever something happens, that's why it breaks my heart when you see kids in school when they're sitting by themselves. That's why we need to train up kids. Hey, go meet with them, and then other people will see that. Very much so. Like I know I've told you this story before, that I would always stop by and talk to Mr. Justin Grave. You know, and I would talk with him, asking how his day was going and everything. Sometimes a good day, sometimes a bad day. And of course, it was questions that yes or no. But it was good to talk with him. And I've seen other people, they ask, "Well, who are you talking to?" I said, "Oh, I'm talking to my buddy, my friend, Justin." And they said, "Well, how does he answer?" You know, I said, "Well, his eyebrows goes up when it's you know, if it's a yes, and they would go down if it, you know, if it was a no." But I said, it's just that time that we spend, maybe walking down the street, maybe you see somebody, maybe it's at work, that you're in a place that maybe someone hasn't been able to talk to in a while. But yet God commands us to just go sometimes. Where do we go? What are our plans? What is our purpose? Sometimes that's hard to figure out in life, isn't it? Even when we retire, that you wonder, well, you know, what can I do today? You know, make out a list. But until our last breath is taken, we serve a purpose in this world. We serve a purpose. Jesus offers spiritual sight to those who trust Him and obey Him. Just like that song, "Trust and Obey." Sometimes those are the hardest words, is to trust and obey. But when we do trust Him and when we do obey Him and we see what happens, it's amazing. It is amazing. But plans and purposes. Y'all continue to pray for even the young ones and the middle ones and the older ones of people in this world, because sometimes they wonder what their purpose is. And sometimes you can tell them, "I know exactly what your purpose in life." And I'll use myself as an example. "Nope, that's not my purpose. This is my purpose over here." And then guess what? When you finally do what God's called you to do, even if it's a small little task, and maybe go talk to somebody, go visit with somebody, maybe write a card or something, it is amazing what a little thing can do. Because look at that. In the Bible, when Jesus, it was little for Him to just make clay. But yet, when He placed it on that man's eye, it was a big thing for that blind man to see again.
Amen.
Amen. Let's pray.